My great-great-grandfather bought the place in 1861. My great-grandmother was 4 years old.
She continuously lived there until she was 100, 103. She was pretty much in charge of the farm. The husband was busy doing the work in the community, running the tobacco industry. The whole town was founded on tobacco money.
Tobacco, correspondence with foreign countries, Norway, Italy, Austria.
And they called him the Baron, Baron Woodson. There's not much history that I know of prior to him getting the land grant to obtain the Poplar Hill property.
My great-great-grandfather bought the place right before the Civil War, and it was around 1,300 acres. My great-grandmother was 4 years old, and by the time the Civil War ended, she was 8 years old.
She continuously lived there until she was 97, maybe, no, 100, 103.
Following the war, my great-great-grandfather maintained and kept the farm. He passed away, and by that time my great-grandmother had married a guy by the name of Walter Gray Dunnington. And he took over the ownership and the running of the farm. My great-great-grandfather set up a bank in Farmville called the Planters Bank. Eventually, my grandfather took that over. Planters Bank was involved in our family until my grandfather died in 1950.
The bank was a conduit for Dunnington tobacco proceeds that, of course, were international, so it would have been important.
Tobacco basically was the foundation of Farmville originally. The Dunningtons were a big part of it.
Watt Dunnington was he was very business savvy, and it's like everything he touched turned to gold. I was going to George Washington University at the time. When I come home for winter break, I would have a part-time job there at Central Virginia Processors, there at the Dunnington factory. Where the time clock was, it was a short wall, and in the corner, there used to be this big box, about half the size of a refrigerator box. And on top of it was these old papers. And then one day, came back from lunch, the box was gone. Oh, they got it on a truck, they're taking it to the dump. So I ran outside and stopped and said, hey, don't do that. Put it on my truck, I'll take it. And I've been processing them over the years. A good number of them were deposited at the Virginia Historical Society for 24 years there. Contracts for farm managers for all the different satellite farms he had throughout the area, including Poplar Hill. Tobacco, correspondence with foreign countries, Norway, Italy, Austria.
Not only did he run his operations, but he also kept a good spirit with the other people who were doing the same thing as he was. They helped the town go from a little small country community to one of the leading communities in the area.
We would go out to Poplar Hill to visit my great-grandmother, and you'd take that main road that is used today to go to Hampton, Sydney. First floor was fascinating, but the attic was always something I gravitated toward, even at my grandmother's house. And when I went up there was lots of old clothes and a Confederate uniform. I'm assuming that it was my great-great-grandfather's uniform.
And what did your grandmother give you to play with for Monopoly games?
She had a trunk full of Confederate money. It was worthless. It's not worthless today, but yeah, we get out that money and play stores and all kinds of stuff with it.
And think about playing hide and go seek in the house. Great house to do that. But I also remember as a 7-year-old, there were a lot of people. They were old. They had gray hair. and you had aunts trying to hug on you and all that. I didn't know who they were. It was a happening. One of the most important things was being able to be with who I call my cousins, because it gave us a chance that we didn't have to see one another. The wonderful way that the help treated us young folks was warming, and it made us feel very special.
You always had lots of women out there managing things, but none of them had the finances or the will to take it over.
I'm Nelson Bold. I've raised in Farmville, born here, and I guess we won't talk about the farm that we used to own. But my father was in sawmill business, and he came to me. I was still in school. He wanted to know what I was going to do when I got out of school. He wanted to know if I'd stay home and help him with it, if he bought it. And I said, yes, I'll stay home and help you with it. And I was 17, and I set my career right then. Sealed bid, and my father was the highest bidder. Well, I guess I was young enough that any place I went was home. He wanted the timber, and it had virgin timber on it, never been cut over. Then he decided, well, he'd fix the house up, which he was fixing the house up and taking money all this time. He started cutting it in early 60s. And so we didn't really move there until 61. We ended up mowing the whole house except for the first front entrance. It was the only part of it that we didn't remodel. Well, one of my jobs was in the wintertime, we had 2 lanterns inside the casing that goes up to the top of the tower where they had the water source. I had to put oil in those lanterns in the morning and in the evenings to keep the pipes from freezing. And it doesn't matter what kind of weather it was, I had to climb that ladder to get that. 62 or so, 63, he finally finished cutting all the timber on that. Well, then he decided he was going to clean up the land. In 63, that's when he built the cattle barn. And we did that up until we sold it in 2000. He passed away in 74, and I was 29 at the time. And when he was in the hospital, he told me, he said, stay at home, stay on the farm, and don't worry about the sawmill, we'll get rid of it. So I just stayed on the farm, and my mother was there, so I more or less, she took care of the house and around the yard, and she liked garden. My mother was proud of the house. She cleaned that house, I guess, twice a week. And we was always having people coming by, want to see curious people, and everything. And anytime they come, she was not bashful about showing them the house because she had it in perfect shape. Especially on Sunday afternoon after church, you'd be surprised how many vehicles would come down, just ride around and look. And my parents really didn't care because they was proud of what they had. The way it looks today is not the way it looked when we sold it. Let's put it that way. That's what I'm trying to prove, yeah. That we didn't leave it like it is. At the time we left, it was, only thing you have to do is just like any place, any house, any farm, you got to do maintenance every year. That's a shame because now you look at it and you can't believe that the way it used to look. Something that really bothered us. Nothing ever was done that was told that they was going to do with it. We was told that they had a piece of equipment just waiting for the time to come out. They was going to be putting a golf course in. They was going to do all the stuff that the house was going to be a country club or a bed and breakfast place or something like that, which never happened. But that's a shame because that's history. That's part of my life, I guess you might say.
Once I discovered the property and its amazing history, it also had the odd little quirk that it was on a championship golf course, which also made it very strange to have an abandoned mansion on a golf course. So I decided that the best way to maybe help save her was to form a nonprofit organization. Our initial goal was to make a website that just was a repository for all of the history. So if the worst came to pass and the mansion was torn down to make way for housing development, we wanted the history to be preserved. And the goal has evolved as we've gone through. We formed partnerships with Longwood University and John Plashel Photo to give house tours to raise funding, historical tours, and so it's really just morphed into a greater collaboration and joining of the Farmville community too, to bring awareness and exposure to the project. My personal dream for the property, would for it to be restored, so preserved, because it's very badly damaged right now. So if we could bring it back to its former glory, that would be part A, and then have that property be used for the greater good would just be icing on the cake.
Something done with it in the future, a group of investors or whatever, it would be a lot of outlay to get the home back in shape.
If that happened, and if it was in safe enough condition that those of us who do have a few things from Poplar Hill would return them to the home.
An important place for Prince Edward County. And it would be nice to uncover all that, restore it, and move forward and then support it in the future.